Hello, hello. So, welcome to how to know what supplements to take. This was the winner for the poll today for the fatigue fix. So, I want to go through that information with you, give you some really valuable information so that you can, know what supplements you should take. It's going to look a little different for everyone, but we can start with kind of the basics and go from there. If you have any questions, just please ask away, ask questions, look for clarification, etc. I can definitely respond to your comments if I'm seeing them here. And if you have questions, if you're watching this on replay, and if you are watching on replay, if you would comment below that you're watching on replay, that's great. Or I can send you a link. And then if you are new here, if you haven't seen any of my lives before, if you haven't really seen what I'm talking about and what sort of the platform is here for me for helping people with their nutrition, then, comment below that you are new and that you're, new and first time maybe here, whatever it is, just let me know. And then if you are someone who's been here before and seen my stuff, also mention that you've seen me talk about some things. Just comment below that you are a pro, all right, that you've been here before. All right, so what I'd like to do first is just kind of describe who this is for. So if this sounds like you are in the right place. If you are someone who is feeling like you could have better health, if you are desiring some symptom improvement, and those symptoms might look like extreme fatigue or fatigue that seems to be relentless. You just cannot get over it no matter what you do. If you have tried everything when it comes to supplements, if you have gone to the big box stores and bought a whole bunch of stuff that you've listened to, maybe heard from a TV doctor or something that told you should have this, that, and the other thing to help you overcome whatever symptom it is that you are trying to deal with, then this is definitely for you. If you are someone, on the other hand, if you're someone that is looking for a quick fix, some kind of magic bullet, something that you think will take care of whatever ails you in, a couple of days or something like that, this is probably not for you. So we're looking at things, how I work with people, we look at things from a more proactive approach versus a reactive approach. But sometimes we get to that point where we are so fed up and frustrated with our symptoms. Therefore, we need to, start over, start again, but do something different. So if that sounds and looks like you, again, you're at the right place. So where do I come from with all this? What is my story? The reason I do what I do basically is because I was probably in a place where you might be in a similar way. My situation was an undiagnosed thyroid condition for years and years and years with chronic symptoms, debilitating symptoms, always to be told that everything was normal and that I just needed to stress less and that I could eat a little bit better. But really there was nothing to do. I was taking a lot of antidepressants. I was taking anti-anxiety medications. I was taking a lot of medications for allergies. That's really all the support that I got. And I still, despite all of that, still felt like garbage. My main frustration, my main symptom was debilitating fatigue that I can only really describe as first trimester pregnancy fatigue. And if you can hear my dogs playing in the background, I apologize. But they're not in here bothering me. So what then eventually happened is I ended up with a cancer diagnosis, a thyroid cancer diagnosis. And I honestly thought that maybe having all that information and then starting from scratch without a thyroid gland and being able to take medications and starting, from baseline and building myself back up, that I would actually start to feel better. And I didn't. I actually felt worse. And so the last thing that I really dug into was my nutrition. I had always been interested in nutrition. I had eaten pretty well for the most part, compared to maybe my counterparts or just like, being a college student and things like that. I, for the most part, ate pretty well. So I didn't really hone in on that too much before. But then when I was not getting better, when I was working with world-renowned doctors to help my situation with my thyroid cancer and dealing with surgeries and all the follow-ups and things, and it wasn't getting better, I knew that nutrition was key. And one of the first things I learned about was supplementation for the right thing, for the right person, for the right symptoms and the right kind in order to help me overcome my symptoms. And nutrition is a piece of that. Supplements are great. I love supplements if they're done in the right way, but you got to change your food. Just like you can't out exercise a bad diet, you can't out supplement a bad diet. Okay. So you have to get them both in check. All right. So now I'm in a really good space. When I have backslides, I know how to correct them, even if it's frustrating. But we absolutely need to get our nutrition in check and our supplements in check. So have you tried supplements before? And if you're commenting, I don't know if I'll be able to see these actually live, so I can always get back to them. But if you have supplemented before, tried supplements, before, but left yourself just spending a bunch of money and wasting the money on it because it never helped you feel better, comment yes that you tried supplements. If you want to, you could say what you've tried just to get a little idea. And there's times where people are sort of worried about spending money on supplements and investing in supplements because sometimes they are really expensive. And sometimes it's sort of the stress of thinking, how long do I have to take these? And often we get bad advice on what to take. So if we are at our primary healthcare provider and they talk about any kind of supplementation, or if you ask about this, a lot of times they're going to tell you that, that's just kind of snake oil. You don't need to do that. I've been told by people that I've worked with when they've talked to their doctors about working with me that, they say that I'm just trying to sell them stuff and it's, doesn't matter. It doesn't work. And what you eat and what you take doesn't affect how you feel. That's what has been told. And it's really frustrating to me because that just undermines the whole process and it keeps people from getting healthy. So one of the things that we need to do when we are in this place of having frustrating symptoms, and if we feel stuck and we're not being supported, we need to be a good advocate for ourselves. But you need to have the tools and resources and the knowledge in order to do so that you can actually do the right thing for yourself. And it's just where people need to get to a point where they just are willing to invest the energy and the time, maybe the money, in order to be able to overcome their symptoms. So that's what we're going to talk about today with the supplements. So this is really important to me because, like I said, I love supplements, but how I usually work with supplements is definitely I can give general recommendations for people based on, the symptoms that we take in through an intake, or sometimes friends and family will be asking me just kind of random things as we're sitting around chatting, and I can give recommendations that way as far as what makes the most sense. But overall, there's a few things we need to take into account when we're looking at supplementation. Usually it's done in my practice with a functional test to look at actual overt micronutrient deficiencies. And then we connect the dots between the symptoms that someone might be having and the nutrition deficiencies that they have. And then we try to put a perfect supplement protocol plan into place. And it usually gets people feeling better within a couple of weeks. I'm not even kidding. People might have been feeling this way for years and years and years. But if you get on the right regimen and you are diligent about the supplement regimen and the foods that you're eating, it's within a couple of weeks, people start to feel a marked difference where you can tell it actually is making a difference for them. So how to know what supplements to take. The first thing you need to really be aware of is the quality of the supplements. Not all supplements are created equally. There is a low barrier to entry in the supplement production line of business. I'll just put it that way. What happens is that There's so many different manufacturers out there. There are big box stores that have branded their own. And even studies have shown when people take those supplements, they go to that store and they buy them, and then they go and take them to a third party lab that's not affiliated with either situation, and they will test what's in the bottle compared to what's on the label. And often it doesn't match. That happens a lot. So when you think of the fact that it can take, we could just get together and order some rice powder off of Amazon, get some veggie caps, and we could maybe we buy some B6 or something like that, and we just put in a little smidge of B6 into the capsule. We put the rest of it, rice powder, into that capsule. We can put it in a bottle. We can make a label on it, and we can sell it for $60 a bottle, and no one is the wiser. I mean, that actually can happen, and it has happened. So what you need to do is, and I could go on and on and on about supplement quality actually, but what you need to do is go through, especially if you're struggling with symptoms and have a hard time getting over symptoms, you really need to work with someone who understands the difference, and look for people who can help you get quality supplements that are professional grade, that have third-party testing, and that they test at the raw material stage, the production stage, and then the stage to where those supplements are going to go out to market. Those need to be in check so that you know that you have quality and efficacious supplements. All right. That is key. And I am super picky about that because I don't see people, for the most part, that are just feeling like they'd like to lose 5 or 10 pounds. The people that I'm working with typically have some of the symptoms I talked about in the beginning: the fatigue, the anxiety, depression, joint pain, gut health issues. You can't take junky stuff and expect to get over that, especially if your food isn't dialed in. All right, so that is kind of the number one thing that needs to be understood about how to know what supplements to take. So then we need to look at the reasons why supplements can be super important and beneficial to your overall health, especially when you're in that process of getting healthy. You're not maybe quite where you want to be, but you're in that goal. You're in that journey to get better. Okay. So what we need to understand is that the reason why supplementation is actually necessary, because I know a lot of people would say, well, if you just eat healthy, then you're good to go. And it would be amazing if that was the case. But our food supply, just in general, the food supply is pretty devoid of nutrients. The ground is that their crops are grown in is devoid of nutrients. That's why there's so many deficiencies of magnesium around so much now, because the soil just has a lot less nutrients in and of itself. So it's just like with farming practices, with our environment, it's the production of it and how things are, shipped from one end of the country to the other. It just loses the nutrients that we once had. When people were more farming and growing their own fruit and vegetables, even raising their own meats and stuff like that, they had a lot better quality of nutrients in those items. But if you, pick apples in Washington and ship them to New York, however long that takes, that's going to be quite the process, and the nutrients are going to be diminished in there. So the first thing with that, just a side note on food, if you start to maybe source your groceries or your produce at least from more local sources, local to you, that's a really good step. Farmers markets and things like that. Look for those types of places to buy your food as much as possible. It's a little hard in this day and age to do that 100%, but just start somewhere and work with that. And then you're going to get better nutrition from the foods that you're eating. All right. Then the second problem that we have with this and why we need supplementation is that our food choices are just really poor. And what people think pass as healthy is really not healthy, and it's actually taking away from our health. So we can go to, the school lunches. This is nothing against, the people that work in the kitchens and anything like that. But what our government has passed as good quality, healthy food for children at school is kind of bare minimum. So that's just one example, but we think that it's healthy and that it's balanced. So we have this whole idea that packaged and processed foods that have nice labels that say whole food, or they might say natural, or they might say low fat or gluten free, we tend to think, oh, those are a healthier option. And they're actually not. They are also devoid of nutrition. They also can cause other things like blood sugar imbalances. And then you choose to, snack all day long because you're trying to fill that nutrient void by eating more and more. And it just kind of is a vicious circle. It's just a spiral of eating less nutritious food. And then we end up in a place where we're actually fairly unhealthy, or maybe chronic disease sets in, or we become metabolically unstable and we have obesity. All those things start to set in because our food options that most of us choose, like when you go and you maybe go through fast food on a regular basis, that's not healthy. But there are some things that we're doing that we think are healthy, like and this, not that this is like the worst thing, but if you are eating popcorn as a snack because you think popcorn is super healthy for you because it can be low fat, that actually might be a problem for you if you have blood sugar instability. So that might not be the best choice for you. Maybe someone else, they could tolerate it, but maybe it's not good for you just because it's low fat. So we have this perception of what's healthy and not, and that's where supplementation can really help to fill the gaps and to fill the voids of the nutrients that we are not getting from our foods. All right, so the third thing that impacts and maybe causes us the need for more supplementation than we would think is stress. We live in an environment and a society where stress isn't even really identified. Everybody I talk to is like, no, it's just normal. It's just normal stress. And then you get into things more and their lives are very stressful, but it's so normal to them. They don't even think to identify it as anything that needs to be addressed. And when you are chronically stressed out for whatever reason it might be, that can be a whole other topic. When you are chronically stressed out, that causes almost like the overuse of certain nutrients, vitamins and minerals that help you manage stress biochemically in your body. And so you are going to be constantly deficient in those nutrients, which set you up for a lot of the things I mentioned: energy issues, mental health issues with anxiety and depression. All that can be caused by ongoing stress. So if you're not dealing with it in a self-care way, or, if you can't control some of the stress that you have in your life and you're making poor-ish food choices, then supplementation needs to be involved in that. Okay. So if there's any questions, like I said, I may not be able to see them. Just take a look here. But if you have questions, I will see them later and get back to you. All right, so let's talk about some of the basics for basically filling in the gaps if those things apply to you, even if one of those things applies to you, whether it's food supply that we have is devoid of nutrients. And if you're relying on those types of foods, that's a baseline for everybody pretty much. If you choose foods that you think are healthy but are actually not that healthy for you, we need to address that, cover those bases. Maybe you are just overtly and straight up just eating poor foods, poor quality foods. Maybe you are eating frozen meals or like 100-calorie packed snacks, or maybe you are that person eating more processed foods on a regular basis. Then this is for you. But also that stress, that impacts everybody. So for, everybody has different levels, and you can always think someone has it worse than you, which can be true as well. But if you are under this constant stress, you are, for the most part, causing your body to be deficient in certain nutrients. So here's what you can do to cover the basics, cover yourself. So you can take a multivitamin. So when I'm looking at people's nutrition panels, I rarely put them on a multivitamin because there might be certain things we're recommending for certain symptoms, but a multivitamin will cover a lot of the bases for people. It's just not always at a therapeutic level. So if you are someone who just wants to make sure they're covering the basics for those 3 reasons that I have just mentioned, then a multivitamin is a great way to go. But what I hear and see people do a lot is, again, we go back to the quality of it. If you're doing, over the counter, big box store types of multivitamins, they're not even the activated form. They are usually in like a tablet form. A lot of times they're in a tablet form, which is not even bioavailable to the body for most people. You're really not absorbing much of it. So you need to make sure you change that up. And I'll give a list of products that I recommend and use on a regular basis with people. I'll do that at the end for you or put that in the comments. But this is something that, needs to be addressed. It's a good covering the basics for general nutrition. Okay. So the other thing that people do with the multivitamin is either the quality of it, but sometimes they don't take enough of it. So sometimes they should be dosed twice a day. And a lot of times people will just take it once a day and take like half the dose. So it's not really doing a whole lot for their body. All right. So the next thing I recommend people take on a regular basis, especially if you live in the colder northern climates, where sun sometimes hides from us too much, we need to take some vitamin D. And again, you need to have the activated form. Cholecalciferol is the form, the D3 form. I recommend, and I don't have it with me here, but it's a liquid one that's already emulsified. So if you do have gut health issues and absorption issues, it will help with that. But one drop of it, like one literal drop, has 2,000 IUs. And depending on where you're coming from, if you don't have numbers, like testing vitamin D numbers, I usually start people slower, like at one drop. If we know the numbers, I might say to do 5. I've had people do 10 before to get those numbers up. And it actually corrects within a couple, I would say 6 weeks to 2 months. And that is helpful. And then you could just take a baseline, especially through the winter or the cold, darker months. And then in the summer, if you are available to be in the sun a little bit without some sunscreen, just for a little bit every day, you can back off on it a little bit, but it makes sense to stay on it, especially if you have a thyroid condition or some other kind of autoimmune or chronic disease. It's good to stay on D. The next thing, this would be baseline for your gut health, would be a probiotic. And the thing about probiotics that I see what people are doing, they might have taken a probiotic they learned about 3 years ago from someone, and they're still taking the same strain. So that is not smart to do, because our gut microbiome changes throughout the year. It changes with the season. It changes under stress. It changes under illness, which is a kind of stress. It just can change. So you need to change up your probiotic. And there are different strains for different things. It's actually really complicated to know all the difference, but there are different products that I will use for different things. So if someone has just want to work on general gut health, there's one that I recommend. If someone has to deal with constipation, I recommend another one. If someone is dealing with more diarrhea, I recommend a different one. If someone's dealing with UTIs a lot, I recommend a different one. So it just really depends. But the goal is to maybe be on that certain one for 3-4 months, and then maybe switch it up after that. Just don't stay on the same one forever and ever and ever. And then the fourth thing that I would say, this is for the general supplements for general health, would be the fish oil. So, but it has to be the right kind. Again, I'm a stickler for that because of who I usually work with, and just kind of based on how my health was. You need to take an omega-3 that's a true triglyceride form, or there's a monoglyceride form. Now, if you go to the big box stores, that's not going to say that on the label, because probably it's not actually that. Most of them are synthetic from what I have seen. I think they're getting smarter because consumers are getting smarter, but you have to really know what you are taking. I recommend, there's this one that I recommend, and again, I'll put this list after the video here, but it's 1,000 milligrams, so 1 gram, and it's in 1 capsule. So like 1 gel cap. So that's enough. And you can actually titrate up to that 3 to 4 grams, depending on your needs. If you have a lot of inflammation in your body, if you have a lot of joint pain, if you have a lot of even muscle aches and that kind of thing, this is a really good one because you can titrate up and down with that. Okay. So just to get a little bit more specific, I'm going to talk about 2 things. So those basic supplements, those 4, But if you have excess stress, give me one second. If you have excess stress that you're dealing with, maybe you've been sick recently. Maybe you switched a job. Maybe you're moving. Things like that, bigger things. So there's a death in the family, there's a wedding in the family, anything that's kind of a major difference in your day to day life, you are dealing with some kind of stress and you can support that underneath. So, like I said, when you're under stress, you're losing a ton of nutrients through your adrenal glands, using them up, and those are going to be mostly B vitamins and vitamin C. Okay. So, what we see there is a need for replenishment of those nutrients. And so, I'm always recommending there's a product, it's a multi B product. It also has things that help support the liver. And we recommend people take that in the morning and then around noon. And those are things that should be taken with food, or you probably feel nauseous. Some people might even get sick if it's on an empty stomach, just because that just B vitamins tend to do that. But they have all those nutrients that will help you power through that stress. So it's something that you can take if you're not doing testing and don't know, but you know you're stressed. It's something you can take ongoing. You can't really overtake it or take too much because it's water soluble and you will just pee out the excess that you might be having. So you can't really overdo it. Okay. The only way that you can overdo it is if you take it too late in the day, and it might keep you too revved up and you might not sleep very well. Okay. And that's a little bit annoying, but it's not necessarily going to be dangerous for you. The other thing is that for stress, if you have time, or a hard time, winding down, shutting down the brain, if you feel like you're tired and wired, like you're exhausted, but you just can't, it's like your motor is just running all the time. If that sounds like you could benefit from some things that amino acids that help calm the brain down. So what we have to deal with our stress, our anxiety, depression is brain chemicals that some are excitatory that keep you alert and being able for you to respond to situations. And then we have the other side that calms those things down. So if you have too much excitatory things happening, you're going to feel that tired and wired and the motor's running and you can't stop and you can't shut down. That's what happens during when people are in that kind of fight or flight kind of situation, and then they actually end up by freezing at some point. But we need the other things, they're called catecholamines, to to bring that other side down so you're more in balance. We want to be able to be alert and respond to things, but we also want to be able to shut down and to be able to just calm ourselves. So if you are someone that's dealing with a lot of stress, you don't see an end in sight, those two things would be really good for you to support the stress and the nutrients needed to manage through the stress, and then something to help you sort of calm down, so you're not overly stimulated. Those are the two things for stress, in addition to the 4 kind of baseline supplementation that I would recommend. All right, then there is some specifics if you struggle with a thyroid condition. Now, it kind of piggybacks on, and I'm not about people taking, 12 supplements a day. Sometimes you have to when you're getting over the hump of something. But if you struggle with a thyroid condition, often the stress is a huge factor in that. So these two might be interchangeable depending on the situation. But there's a product that I use for people specifically. It's called Thyroid Synergy. And what it does is it's the nutrient specific for thyroid hormone conversion, for helping to manage stress. And it's just a good overall supplement specific for thyroid nutrients. And I've talked about that before. You could probably find that in other videos about thyroid specific nutrients. But that product is really great for doing that. Now, if you are a person who has an autoimmune thyroid condition and has elevated antibodies, usually you will see their TPO or thyroid peroxidase antibodies. If you have elevated levels of those, or elevated levels of something called thyroglobulin antibodies, then I would recommend a supplement that contains black cumin seed oil, which is known to help lower those antibodies, among other things, lots of inflammation reduction, helps with blood sugar control. I mean, there's so many things it can help with. And so I have a product specifically that I use for people dealing with that. Another thing, just food-wise, that helps with antibodies is anything that contains asparagine. So think asparagus. There's some other things too with that, but that is something that can be helpful with bringing down the antibodies. Okay, so again, if there are any comments or questions, I can't see anything at this time, but what I would like to suggest that you do is, reach out to me if you have any specific issues you want to deal with. I don't know, someone said black cumin seed oil. I'll see if I can put it in the comments here. And I'll list the product that it's in. I don't know if you can see that black cumin seed oil. And I'll list the products so you can access them should you need. And also I have a supplement course that you can take, and it gives all the details about that. And it's $27. So it's just a really good price point to get into, so you can learn about the specifics of different nutrients for different reasons, and you get access to them, of course. And if that is interesting to you, make sure to private message me, and I can send you the link to get that going and get that started for you. But it will go through general health supplements, it'll go through gut health supplements, it'll go through thyroid health supplements. It has kind of the whole shebang is listed in there. So it's just a really good idea. And then of course, getting you the quality supplement, getting you the access to that. And that course has a nice exclusive discount to access the supplements as well. So if you are interested in that, you can private message me or ask me for the link in the comments, and I can send that to you. Like I said, it's $27 to get started in that. But I just wanted to get on here and make sure that we talk about the supplements, because they're something that I use every day with people. People sometimes have weird thoughts about supplements, and I hope, yes, this is recorded or being recorded for sure. Because people have, I think supplements get a bad rap, but there are some supplements that should get a bad rap. And I've seen it a lot, and I've seen how people use it because they're desperate to find a solution, and they have so much, they're really wasting a lot of money. They're taking nutrients that are not efficacious. They're taking nutrients that are actually maybe, potentially contributing to their symptoms with the fillers and stuff that are in them. And, it's just something that you don't know unless you know. And then when you do know it, like after my training and my experience, then it's hard to not share this information, because I just want people to get the stuff that's actually going to be helpful and beneficial to them, and stop wasting their time, and stop, throwing money at things that isn't actually beneficial to them. So I just hope that this has been helpful. And I hope that, if you do need something specific, or if you are struggling with a health condition, that you can reach out to me anytime. And, we can kind of walk through and see what would be the best bet for you. So with that, if there are no questions or any other comments, and again, I'm not sure if I can see everything, I will absolutely get back to you as soon as I see them. All right. Thank you so much. So I'll be back next week for the fatigue fix to go over the next thing. So look for the poll on Monday and to talk about topics that you might want to hear about. And we'll get those on the live trainings for you every week. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.